Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Well Anchored Life podcast, where we share the stories of brave guests who have navigated life's toughest storms and learned how to thrive amidst hardship. I'm your host, Belisha Tang. First, a quick and important note. This episode of The Well Anchored Life explores deeply personal and sometimes sensitive topics, specifically surrounding mental illness. We want to be explicitly clear that neither the host nor the guest are licensed medical professionals or therapists. We are simply sharing our lived experiences and insights from our own personal journeys. This conversation is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out immediately to a qualified professional. Listener discretion is advised. Thank you. Alrighty, guys. Today we are honored to welcome to the podcast Claire Hicks. Claire is a dedicated performer and healthcare professional currently pursuing a career in theater arts. Originally from the Sacramento area, Claire brings a wealth of life experience and resilience to her craft. After spending over a decade serving her community as a certified nurse assistant, she is now channeling her passion for storytelling and human connection onto the stage. Claire recently completed her first semester of theater arts studies, marking the beginning of an ambitious journey into professional performance. As an advocate for mental health awareness and a member of the neurodivergent community, she leverages her personal experience with ADHD and autism to bring depth, authenticity, and empathy to her roles. When not on stage or studying, Claire is a talented singer who enjoys spending quality time with her family. Everybody, please welcome Claire to the podcast. Hi, Claire. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well.
It's so great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yes. So, Claire, you are actually, the way I met you was through Vega, who is an individual I interviewed for the podcast previously. And you're really good friends with Vega, right?
Oh yeah, we've known each other for like 10 years plus.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So she connected the two of us and we hopped on a phone call and I learned more about your story. And, your story is really inspiring because you've gone through mental health challenges just like me. And there were so many like deep philosophical things we talked about in the realm of mental health that we will cover in detail today in the interview. So before we jump into the mental health talk, I want to learn more about you as a person. So, where were you born and raised?
Uh, Carmichael in Sacramento, raised kind of Citrus Heights and Roseville, divorced household, so between the
Okay.
two.
Yeah. Nice. So you're that okay. This may be a dumb question, but that is Bay Area, right? Sacramento. Is it?
No, Bay is more
No.
towards San Francisco.
Got it. Got it.
It's just a
Yeah.
few hours out though, so it's not, it's
Right.
within reach. I'm terrible with directions though. I always tell everybody that. Don't trust me to get you anywhere.
No, me too. I have the same thing. Yeah. So I'm born in the SF Bay Area, but I've been to Sacramento a few times. My cousin lives there. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah. Okay. So, you are also a singer.
I love to sing, yes. I'm working on it.
Working on it. And right before this, you just got back from a singing lesson. Was that
Oh
right?
no, I was just doing karaoke in the living room.
Oh my God, I love it.
I was doing Journey to the Past from Anastasia.
Oh, Anastasia the musical or the
Yeah.
movie?
Well, it's
Movie music
music.
is
Yeah, I
same.
love it. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorites. It's not the song I'm supposed to be practicing for homework, but I'm
Okay.
obsessed with it.
I love the song Once Upon a December.
Yes, I was just singing that one too. Love that one.
Da, da, da,
I know it's
da,
so
da,
beautiful. You're good
da.
too.
No, I'm not. I don't know why I just did that.
It's hypnotic. That's what music does to us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, very cool. So tell me about like your childhood.
Oh boy. What a
Loaded
loaded question,
question. Yeah.
right? Um, I guess I consider it normal, as most people. I have four siblings.
Mm,
Split household, so parents divorced when I was 3. Um, I don't have many early childhood memories, actually. It's very weird. I don't remember
mm,
much stuff under the age of like 11,
mm,
just a couple here and there. But yeah, four siblings, divorced household. I was a very loner of a child. I was not outspoken or very with people. I kind of really kept to myself. A lot of SpongeBob and crying. Um, sad but true. Um, I don't know. I didn't do much in my younger years. I know that sounds blanketed, but it's just kind of true. I was really into anime. That was kind of my solace. I loved anime, as mo many of us do.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
watch it as much as I did anymore,
Hmm.
but that helped me a lot at the time.
Yeah.
I had a goth phase when I was younger, which, knowing me now, I'm like respects to all styles, but not
Yes.
not me. I know I'm wearing black right now, but I want to
No,
be
yeah.
colorful.
Yeah, no, that's fun. We all go through phases, right? Like when
For
we're
that.
teenagers, when we're young, we're trying to figure out our identities. We're trying on different hats to wear, different roles to
Exactly.
play. Yeah, I
And that
think that's
never
totally
stops at any age, too.
right,
Vega and I talk
right.
about that all the time. We're like, you don't stop finding interest like until you're dead. You
Yeah,
go your whole life
yeah.
and be like, I love this thing that you never explored.
Yeah. I think it takes a certain kind of person to be curious to explore themselves, because I feel like everyone has different interests and things that they wish they had done when they were younger, things
Mm,
that still they want to try, but for a multitude of reasons, a lot of people just don't do it. So I really applaud you for continuing to lead your life with curiosity, and I tend to be drawn towards people who are well, we're all multifaceted, but people who
mm.
really have the courage to grow themselves and explore different passions and interests, I think that's really cool. That's really
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to draw a whole lot when I was a kid too. It was interesting. I was just texting Vega about that earlier today. How that was a huge passion of mine at the time, and then it just kind of fell off.
Mm,
And for a little bit, I felt sad about it, almost like it was an identity loss because as a child, it's what I got acknowledgement for so much. So it was like
hmm.
my praiseworthy material.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just stopped. And I went through a phase where I thought, whoa, I've got no value outside of this.
Mm,
Just like so latched onto it, which was interesting when I was talking with Vega about that because there's nothing wrong with identifying with artworks, but when you feel like it's your only value, it can destroy you if you take a break from it.
totally.
And I don't draw almost at all anymore, and it doesn't make me sad anymore. I'm glad about
Mm,
that. It used to kind of bother me. I'm not saying I'll never draw again, but it's not been even in my mind for the past like year. I just don't care to.
yeah. And that's totally fine, like we could have things we were really passionate about and into when we were younger.
Yeah.
And what you said about latching your identity onto what you do, it can be a little unbalanced sometimes, right? Because if you lose this thing or if you just naturally outgrow it, but then that was also a source of a lot of validation and recognition from other people, it can definitely lead to a little bit of an identity crisis and thinking
Yeah.
like, okay, what am I good at? What is gonna earn me recognition now that this one defining aspect of my identity is gone?
Yes.
Like, so I totally hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, especially depending on like your family dynamics growing up.
Mm.
With my family, my dad was a big narcissist, so he like ran and
Oh,
controlled the house. And when you put religion in that, it just makes it a hurricane.
mm.
But I would go to him or people like that just to get comment like praise for my work.
Yeah.
Again, you attach your value to it so much.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, there's a spiritual philosophy that's saying like you are not what you do. And you're also not your emotions, you're not your thoughts. Like you are you,
Mm.
your essence, but there are so many parts to your identity that's very removed from. It's like when people ask you, "Who are you?" Like they're like, "Tell me about yourself." And then you
Loaded question.
compulsively say make a like a an itemized list of like all the things you've accomplished, all the work you do, where
Yeah,
I feel like that's the default way people answer that question.
exactly.
So if I were to ask you, like, who are you, Claire? Like, removed from the roles and the hats and the shoes we fill and the labels, like, who are you?
Oh, I'm explorative and bubbly.
Love that. Yes.
It's interesting. I was talking to Vega about that too, about the whole reason I wanted to do acting in the first place. That's what I'm in school for right now,
Mm.
is because it just felt like you're so, in people in general, I recommend everyone take an acting class just as a hobby, even if you don't want to pursue it.
Oh,
It is so emotionally insightful. And a book I have to recommend, it's been around for a long time. Um, Respect for Acting by Uta Hagen.
okay.
Definitely recommend that book. It's just there's some chapters in there that really it's almost therapeutic.
Mm.
And there's one chapter in there where she says when it comes to acting, you're trying to intentionally evoke this feeling and you have to think about that. You're doing that over and over and over again. And if you don't know how to properly channel that and heal with it and not let it affect you, it can ruin you. And I think
Wow.
that's like just very powerful stuff. If you don't keep it aware, especially what I think is if you're not aware of something traumatic that could have happened in your life, as an example, that if you're not aware of the circumstances of it, have talked through it either through therapy or whatever you need to heal your situation, to learn that it's not something that you should use to attack yourself, you can use that memory to attack yourself if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
And that can make it traumatic. My acting teacher says you want to be careful to evoke certain memories when you're acting because it can be reliving trauma. And I was
Oh
like, I
yeah.
didn't even think about that.
And funny enough, like I've wanted to try acting for a while. I think I'm just way too self-conscious to do that. Like I know I'm like pretty out there with this podcast and everything. Like but embodying a character and like being funny or being like silly, like
It's interesting when you think about it. Yeah,
I
because
don't
like,
know how to do that. On
well,
command, at
yeah.
least. On command, it just
It's hard
feels
to
very,
command.
I
That's
don't
that's a
know.
key. You got to tell yourself it's hard to command because we often
So,
say what you just said, and we are all those things in our own way, maybe smaller
yeah.
amounts, maybe bigger amounts, but everyone has all of those abilities in them. That's what I love
Yeah.
about it, is we all can be silly, funny, weird, serious, and it looks different on each person. That's what makes it unique. We don't want to be carbon copies.
Right, right. But what you brought up about how like sometimes acting can you could be reliving trauma, right? By
Yeah.
trying to convey an emotion. What's your philosophy on acting? Like when you're embodying a character, is it like an extension of yourself? Are you drawing from your personal experiences to create this character, or is it like,
For me, what we've been studying in class is called what was the word? Substitution.
hmm,
And it does talk about more of that in Uta Hagen's book, as well as other books. You can find this, not to go down method acting. That's a whole other journey.
yeah, I heard
And
of that.
also commonly misunderstood. We talked about that in class, but can touch on that later. It's lengthy.
Yeah, yeah,
But substitution can be not just memory. That's what's interesting. Substitution can not just be memory. It can also be a smell, a touch, a feeling, a cool temperature, spicy. It could be, any of those things that brings about the sensation of a memory you want to insert. Because when I'm doing a character, for example, I'm doing a scene from the play Angels in America. I'm going to be doing Joe, the husband of a wife who is in the closet in the 80s when AIDS are very rampant. And he's also a Mormon, so he's in denial.
mm,
Yes,
okay.
and his wife is pressuring him and he just explodes at her. And I was taking notes on what to do for this because the first scene is stop it, I'm warning you. It's the first sentence he says. And as I just said it, that doesn't sound very commanding as I'm reading it. So you have to think of something to evoke that. And it's not easy to just start shouting at someone where society has taught us to be so closed off
Yeah,
feelings that to shy away from them, it's not the proper way. I've always envied people that could be a little bit more explosive because I'm not the explosive type.
yeah.
But that's why I chose this scene to act out in front of the class for a reason to kind of help break that, within me is to be like, I know it's there. Let's find it.
Wow. Amazing. You're really getting out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself
Not
to,
easy. I'm still
yeah,
hesitant to do it, but
so brave.
practicing and the
Yeah,
teacher's really helpful. And the other students, we all, help each other, pump each other up too.
that's awesome. Yeah. All right. So, now let's talk about mental health. So, what's your experience with mental health?
Um, boy, I don't think I realized that I had ADHD until in my teens is when I started to like talk about it. I don't think I got a formal diagnosis until my late teens, kind of pursued it on my own. I always had depression, but I at the time just wasn't, you're a kid, you're growing up, you don't know about that stuff. So I just kind of thought it was normal, really isolated, a lot of loneliness. My parents did not care to find out about mental health, and I think that that's really a shame that we need to get parents on board more for supporting their children's journey. It's very important.
Yeah.
But they didn't really care to look into it. And then as I grew up, my parents kind of started to blame me for some of these things that I was learning about myself, and then you internalize that and blame yourself, thinking you're the screw up.
Yeah.
And then with my dad, who got involved with Jehovah's Witnesses, while I respect the religion, I personally believe it's kind of like a cult.
Mm,
That's just my personal belief.
Hmm.
Vega's part of the religion. She's great. There's wonderful people out there.
Hmm.
But it involved this pressure even more of a higher morale. So you're trying to discover yourself as a young person in the world. And I know a lot of people like me in my age group, millennials in our 30s, we didn't get a chance to express who we were, so we're figuring it out. And that's a lot like what my journey was. Still don't know a lot about what I want. My whole childhood just felt very, very closed off and crying and very alone. I only had a handful of friends. It felt very sad looking back at it, maybe
Hmm.
just through my lens, but yeah, it was just a lot of that.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. It's hard with parents. We can talk about parents. My parents, I'm an Asian American, Chinese American. Mental health was not talked about growing up, and we were expected to just be like goal achieving machines, no emotions. Crying was forbidden, if we cried, would get yelled at. Just like toughen
Really?
up. Yeah, yeah, it was
Oh
really
no.
like I love my parents and they love us, but like it was a very hyper controlled environment. We were expected to act like adults from a very early age. We had to grow up really fast. So yeah, it's hard when you don't get that emotional support from your parents. But
Yeah.
I think through that though, it's like it sounds to me that you really took agency and control over your own healing, despite the fact that you didn't get a lot of the support from your parents. The fact that you sought out a diagnosis for yourself in your late teens, that takes a lot of self-initiative. So, at what point did you say, I want to pursue this diagnosis?
Um, it was in my later teens, early 20s where I think they finally were just like, yeah, it's ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Got that looked into. Unfortunately, at that point I was estranged from my mom, so
Mm.
we hadn't spoken in a long time, and then she'd passed, so that we didn't get a chance to connect on that. My dad, unfortunately, was not supportive, very mean and very harsh about it, and kind of weaponized my ADHD and just being a person, uh, the quirkiness of the things I would do against me. That was
Mm.
partly narcissism and, religion involved, not so much the ADHD, but I internalized that by having ADHD for making what I thought were mistakes versus they were just little quirks that we do, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of people don't know about ADHD. It's the
Yeah.
dopamine seeking, the self-soothing, some people pick at their skin, it's criticized, you even zone out, disassociate. Vega and I talk about that a lot, about disassociating. You're just kind of staring off into space. And when you come to, people kind of like, what are you doing? And you just needed to disassociate, but it looks externally weird and people want to get away from you. And my family was just not supportive of that. So again, just very closed off. And then as I kept growing and learning more about ADHD, medications aside, it's a whole topic with that one.
Yeah.
But medications aside, you cannot fully kick to the curb your ADHD behaviors. You just can't. It's just not possible. Some have it more minor, some more severe. Me, I don't think I'm super severe, but I have had these quirks that I just cannot get rid of. Like I never eat my meals consistently. I'll forget to eat sometimes. I pick at my skin a lot, just out of nervousness. I can't stop it. Somebody will tell me a piece of information and it goes out the window in a second flat. And then you feel embarrassed, like carrying notes with you to remember people's names and things like that. They're like, didn't I just tell you? And you're like, this is a lot of information at once. I'm doing my best, but they just think that you're not paying attention and you don't care.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I totally get that. It's like we live in a world where I think people are often uneducated about mental health. They're not very literate about it. And especially if they never had mental illness or a condition themselves, or they don't know anyone personal who does, then they may be like they're on the outside,
Yeah.
And when they see a behavior that's a little bit, in your words, like a quirk of personality or like something that's off the normal in the bell-shaped curve, a lot of people are just they want to distance themselves from things that are out of the norm, and that's not a compassionate way to go about it.
Yeah.
I think yeah, Vega and I talked a lot about this theme of we live in a world that's not built for our brains,
Mhm.
so in those moments when you come across people who are ignorant or judgmental or not compassionate and understanding, like how do you cope with that?
For starters, I internalize as in like, let's stop and remember this is not a fault.
Hmm.
A lot of people who are raised ADHD, there's a lot of great research out there that points to that they get like 10 times more criticism as a child growing up,
Yeah.
and you internalize that. So the first thing you're going to do is say, I screwed up, I messed up, or what did I do wrong? It's like the
Yeah.
first thing you're going to start saying to yourself. And I try to stop it right there. When something didn't go my way or someone told me a piece of information that just slipped my mind, the first thing I want to do is go, oh God, you forgot. Damn it. Like, you're just so stupid. And then I'm like, wait a minute. This is new information and new environment. I'm a little anxious. I'm uncomfortable. That it makes a person who doesn't have ADHD forget their stance, circumstances. So if it's an interaction with somebody where they're telling me something, I tell them right up front, I have ADHD. Now, a lot of people will just nod and kind of go, okay, great. And I'm like, okay. They don't, they hear me, but they don't fully hear me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the difference because when that comes back around and they'll ask me information, that's why I tell them right up front. I said, I tell you I have ADHD. Like I just got my new job. And during the interview, I did not hide it from her right away. I said to
Mm.
her, I have ADHD and I'm telling you this because I can tend to be forgetful. And I told her I'll walk into a room, someone will tell me someone's name, and I won't remember unless I write it down, and you got to be patient with me. She said, okay, as many of them do again, but sometimes they don't understand the dots you have to connect to get there.
Yeah.
And that depends on the individual, but you got to be prepared that you're going to run into people who want to help and who don't want to help. You're going to run across both.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really important topic, actually, is disclosure of mental health status in the workplace.
Mm,
It's weird because my therapist, you would think a therapist would be, more, she's a great therapist, but she always advises me against disclosing my diagnosis of bipolar disorder too soon to
mm.
people, whether that's in the workplace or in when I'm dating, in my personal relationships. She listened to my first podcast episode here, and I even told her kind of jokingly, I was like, this podcast is going to be the death of my dating life.
No, don't say,
They're
don't
gonna
say
Google
that.
me, they're gonna find this podcast, they're gonna find out I have bipolar without me being even able to
Mm.
explain. They just hear it.
Well, but people who are so quick to judge that just didn't want to take the time to get to know you.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people we love and care about have bipolar, ADHD, depression. It's so common.
it is.
It needs to be more normalized, because it can be
It does.
disguised, but it's a little bit in everybody.
Yeah. It's so common. It's just this freaking stigma. Like, I talk so much about
The
stigma on this
stigma,
podcast.
yes.
Let's talk about stigma. So, what are your thoughts?
It needs to be destigmatized
I
is what needs to
know.
happen. Oh my gosh. So yeah, there was one person I worked with once. She had autism more severely than me, and it was mostly social skills, is from what I could see on the surface level. I don't know all. But I was working with her once, and we're talking about ADHD and autism, and she told me once that she hates being autistic because she says that she doesn't understand social cues with people, and she wants to make more friends, but doesn't fully understand what they're trying to tell her information-wise. It's not registering with her, and she says she feels out of place. And she had more of a quiet demeanor, kept to herself, but she wanted to be involved. And I was telling her, yes, I feel the same way. I'll want to be involved, and sometimes I'll blurt something out that may not be conversation, relevant, and everyone just
Mhm.
looks at you like, huh? But it just kind of kept your dopamine brain going. So you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that to lighten the mood. Now everyone's staring at me. You're like, wait a minute, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. When I was episodic with bipolar and I was hypomanic or manic, it causes you to say things, do things that are uncharacteristic and
Mm.
can be perceived as odd. And I've gotten a lot of judgmental stares, awkward silences, unfollows
Yeah,
on social. That's something that happened as well. And it's hurtful.
it
It
is.
feels bad.
Like, you don't need to understand what they're doing. It's okay to ask if somebody's okay, but we don't need to like dissect what they do. A lot of times when I was with my family, I would just get off the couch and lay flat on the floor and just stretch out.
Yeah.
And even my siblings would just kind of look at me like, and for me it was comfortable. I was like, I just needed to do this, and it just everyone gave me this look, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm like, I'm just
Um,
stretching.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with stretching. Like,
Yeah, but everyone's kind of like, huh? But to not even be able to do that in the own comfort of your own home,
oh my
let alone a
gosh.
stranger, you're just like, oh,
You can start to feel like you are the problem. You know,
yes,
you're different, you're other, you're alienated, and that's a horrible feeling.
you do internalize it.
Yeah,
It can eat
yeah.
you up.
It can eat you up. And there's internalized stigma, shame, you know, you feel ashamed for this thing that you never asked for, you know, you were born with it. And to my understanding, ADHD is a what do they call it? Neurodevelopmental disorder. So it's like your actual this is how your brain was wired
Hmm.
from birth, you know.
And you
And
have less dopamine than the average person. So
yeah.
that's less of an initiative to start tasks, longer staying, focus with
Yeah.
tasks,
Yeah.
things like that. It's harder. Most people have more, they literally have scanned the brains. They have just more supply. So it's
Yeah.
easier to keep their attention?
Yeah, exactly. That's from what I've read about ADHD. It's a shortage of dopamine, right?
Yes.
And so what exactly what kind of symptoms arise then? You mentioned some, like it's harder to start tasks or finish tasks or stay focused.
Ah.
Like what are yeah, tell me.
Vig and I were literally just talking about that for texting earlier.
Yeah.
It's called like task avoidance.
Okay.
So it's like this thing where you know you have to do something and you don't want to do it. Or as I've seen a couple videos on YouTube talk, they call it like the hot stove thing. It's like you don't want to touch it, even. It's a different example. Probably I'm not wording it right. Somebody will Google that and figure it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, it's where you know something has to be done and like everything in you is just fighting to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to do the dishes, you need to get up and do a homework assignment, you've got to do some house cleaning, something essential, and everything in you is just fighting against it. It's not that you can't do it, you just don't want to do it. It's hard to even put into words. It's just like everything in me wants to fight doing it. And I have to sit there, and that's the thing. People say like, what can I do to ignore this? And I'm like, there's no ignoring it. You have to face it.
Yeah.
You have to face it. So you have to sit with the uncomfortable feeling and go, why am I fighting this so hard? Why don't I want to do this? And for me, I often find out I have to like pick it apart. I'm like, why am I judging myself for not doing this? Because you think you're a failure, because you're going to have nothing to do later and you've got nothing to do in your life. It can lead down a dark, depressing thought path for me. I've
Yeah.
had those thoughts. It seems funny, but sometimes I don't want to do things because I'll think I'll have nothing to do later, and that makes me feel like I have no life.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's
So it
not
gets into this spiral.
yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
really dark thought. And I'm like, wait a
Wow.
minute, if I do it now, though, I'm not going to be anxious and worried about it later. I'll be more
Yeah,
prepared. And
exactly.
sometimes I do what I call like the third person perspective. Like I'll look at the situation and say, what happened here? Would you judge this person for that? And my answer would be no. And I'm like, well, then why are you doing it to yourself? And
Exactly.
challenge that thought. Why are you doing it to yourself? It's really uncomfortable because we're not kind to ourselves. We're kinder to a stranger than you are to yourself. So you
Yeah,
got to take yourself out of the experience and go, if this wasn't me and I was looking at this person, would I be judging them as harshly for this? If the answer is no, then it's like, don't do it to yourself.
exactly. Yeah. Wow, so much to unpack there. Where do I even I had a thought, like funny.
Yeah.
I think I might be a little bit on the ADHD spectrum because a lot of what you're describing and a lot of other individuals I interviewed who have the ADHD diagnosis and people I meet, they describe their symptoms. I'm like, wait, I totally feel that. Like, and it's interesting because I didn't have problems with focus, but growing up, but I feel like the that's just one facet of ADHD. But there are other things as well that, and like as I entered adulthood, I didn't have as much structure as I did in childhood. That's when it started getting, okay, yeah, I have to do the dishes. I really don't want to do the dishes.
Yeah.
And it's taking Herculean effort just for me to clean my
It is.
room or like, you know, have all these empty LaCroix water bottles or like LaCroix cans that I need to
Yeah.
throw away, and they're just sitting over there. And I know that if I throw it away, like I'll feel better,
You
you
know it.
know?
That's the thing. People think you don't know it. You know it.
I know what I need to do, but it's like it's hard for me to just do it. And actually, here's what I was gonna say. So, have you heard of Mel Robbins? She's like a famous, she has a
She's the one that wrote
podcast.
the Just Do It thing. I haven't read it
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
I've seen her
called
around.
the 5 second rule or something.
Yeah, I've seen some of her videos.
Yeah. And she recently wrote a book, Let Them, which
Ah, I
I
heard
highly
about that one.
recommend. Yeah. But the 5 second rule is basically saying like if you have to do something and you really don't have motivation to do it,
Hmm.
count down from five. You go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it.
There you
You
go.
gotta just do it. Because if you don't do it after 5 seconds, like it's just, you're not gonna do it. It's like a
There,
little motivation hack.
yeah, there's been like some studies about that because like motivation is what people use, but actually action is what draws motivation, not the other way around.
Exactly.
People think you need to be
Yes.
motivated to get started. I'm like, no, you actually need to move to
Yeah.
get started. And you don't have to run a marathon. Like what I'll
Mm.
do when I'm like overwhelmed, I'll put my phone down when I'm doom scrolling and I'll sit there in the silence and I'm like, okay, I don't like the silence. I gotta do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Or I'll just put my
Um,
feet over the side of my bed and I'll be sitting there and I'm like, okay, we're already here. We might as well just get up.
yeah. Yeah. I like to, what are some of my hacks when I have low motivation? I love moving and exercise. Like I'm a fitness teacher, so that's like literally what I do for my job. So if I ever find myself in bed just catatonic, like just laying there, I
Hmm.
do the whole counting down thing. I'm like, okay, in 5 seconds, I'm just gonna stand up. And I'm just gonna
Yeah,
stand
start
up.
small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then now I'm just gonna do 10 push-ups because I find physical activity a really good way to just get the blood flowing in your body and your
Yeah.
brain. And it just, yeah, I highly recommend physical activity as a way to feel better. It increases your dopamine even, like the post-workout endorphin high you feel,
And you got to find what works for you. Definitely
find what
physical
works for you.
movements, I would encourage for anybody. But for those that don't want to do it, it could be some kind of hobby that's
Yeah.
digital, just to help them get out of the mindset a little bit. Not digital, recommend. Something like that. Like Vega was telling me she was thinking about getting back into knitting today.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like my singing. So, I mean, for me, sometimes it's motivating to be like, you know what, I want to go listen to some music. And it's going to take me from my room to the living room to get out, to
Yeah.
get dressed and be listening to some music and kind of be like, okay, I could do this. And it gets me going.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's so much research done on motivation. I watched this, was it a TED Talk or something? It was like the wife of an ultra marathon runner. So we're talking people who run
Wow.
like 50 miles, 100 miles.
Just a few.
And yeah, yeah. And she was like, her partner, her husband, who was the runner, was talking to her, and he was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. And then she told him, she's like, one step at a time. So don't even think so far ahead. Just focus on
Yeah.
getting one foot in front of the other. And eventually, that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Bingo. That's what I was telling Vega earlier today is when you're so overwhelmed, you're looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're looking at the big assignment. You got to tell yourself, I just got to get up and do this one thing. What can I do to chop it up? Because when it's big, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
like, it's too much. We focus on the big goal so much. I'm like, let's break this up.
Yeah, exactly. Atomic Habits, that book, I haven't read it, but it just evidenced by the title. Atomic Habits,
Mm,
small little actionable items like habits that you can integrate in your day to day that all together, you keep doing these small habits, it's going to lead into something bigger. But it all boils down to the little steps you take, and
yeah.
especially if you're dealing with a mental health diagnosis, seemingly simple tasks can seem just so, so difficult to do. So, what would you encourage someone who also has ADHD and going through this? What is one piece of practical advice you would urge them to take, like today?
To know that the reality is that you cannot avoid the diagnosis. You have to work with it. For myself when I was younger, I kind of used it as a crutch to not put in effort because I was afraid of failing and messing it up because that's what I was believed I was after doing so many failures. And I think you have to remind yourself if you have ADHD or any similar things of that nature, you're going to have to put in the effort and be ready for the fact that you're not going to get everything you want each time. I don't like using the word failure because that hurts.
Hmm.
But just know that you're human and you're gonna fall short sometimes of what you want. And then in those moments, you really got to sit with the feeling of that discomfort. It is so hard to sit with that. We talk about that in acting class too. It's you got to sit with that feeling and everyone wants to run away from it because it's scary. It's very scary. As soon as that feeling comes up, you're like, I don't like this, get it away from me.
Yeah.
But even with ADHD, I have to tell myself, well, where is this feeling coming from? Question it. Why? What is happening? Where is it coming from? Is that true about me? And answer all those questions. And then be kind to yourself and give yourself some grace. Give yourself some praise. If you
Yeah.
did something and it didn't work, don't let the first thoughts be, well, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe you just tried one way and it didn't work for you. Okay, let's try another way. Let's try another day, a different method. You could even dress up differently, put on fun music or something. You just shake it
Yeah.
up, make it your own. I like
Yeah.
listening to like battle music or something when I gotta go do the dishes. I'm like, let's do this. I did that for laundry and I was just like folding with a mission. It was so much fun.
Mine is Pirates of the Caribbean
Yes.
music. The Kraken. I just love that song.
Well, if you listen to Lindsay Sterling, she did a violin song with
Oh,
it was like a pirate theme. It was so good. I highly
oh
recommend
my
her.
God. I love Lindsay Sterling.
Yes. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Gladiator soundtrack. Do you
Oh
know the
yeah.
Gladiator? So
All
amazing.
that kind of
It's just
stuff. If you ever
freaking
look up like video
phenomenal.
game backgrounds or like tavern music or like
Okay.
festival music, oh, I
Yeah.
found some that sounded like Lord of the Rings, and I'm just like, this is it. I'm like, this is where I gotta get up. I'll just sometimes if you're sitting in bed, I'll put in my headphones and just listen to the music. I'm like, okay, it's too energetic. I gotta go do something.
Yeah,
Make it
exactly.
fun.
Make it a game and music
Yes.
speaks to me. Like I literally have a tattoo right here that's like it's a bass clef and a treble clef from the piano shaped in a heart. And then there's like little keyboard little signs here and it's like a heart shape. And it's because I'm a dancer and I just
Yeah.
notice like if I can make everything to the beat of the music, like however I
Hmm.
move, even like I'm doing the dishes to the beat of the music,
Yeah.
then and letting the music guide the pace at which I'm doing it and like making everything a dance basically because dancing is like
Yeah.
moving to music. So if I can make my workouts to music, if I could do that, like I'm good. I'm good.
Music
Let
is
the
a
music
huge,
carry you.
yes. Music is a huge motivator. Oh my gosh.
There you go. Okay, so now let's transition to talking about grief and loss of a loved one because you lost your mother, right, when you were
Mhm.
21. And tell me about all of that. How did you cope?
Well, we'd been estranged for a while, so she had lost custody of me to my dad when I was around 16, 17.
Hmm.
So after that, we just fell short. I wish we'd gotten a chance to know each other better because she felt like I was choosing my dad over her. And that's pretty much what it was. Some of her behaviors, she never formally, as I know till this day, got diagnosed with bipolar, but I assume she had it with
Hmm.
depression. I don't judge her for it now, but as a child who didn't understand, I looked to her for guidance and support and just saw her behaviors, and it made me confused, lonely, and afraid.
Yeah.
Now that I know better, I know it was her, crying for help because she was also hurting a lot too. I did recognize that as a kid, but when you're a kid, you look to your parents for guidance.
Yeah.
So, because of that, she'd lost me from a DUI when she was driving home with me. Yeah, she almost like hit some cars
Oh
on the
my
way.
God.
And that's how she lost custody of me. And I ended up living with my dad, and we didn't speak. And my brother, who was a few years younger than me, decided to live with her. And then comes his graduation when he's 18, a few years later, because we're only a few years apart. I hadn't heard from her. I hadn't heard from that side of the family at all. We wanted to go to my brother's graduation. And when we were there, I was fully prepared to run into her. I was like, okay, it's been enough time. I can do this, was like, all right, just gonna just, be, make this comfortable, not socially weird. And I was like telling my big brother, I'm like, okay, we can do this. And we go there and we don't see her anywhere. And we're like, okay, she's probably avoiding us, you know? And I get that. I was like, she probably didn't want to run across us. I find my younger brother, tell him, congratulations for graduating. And he just bluntly says to me, Mom's dead. Yeah. That was my reaction too. I kind of just was like, what? What do you mean? Like I think it made him uncomfortable, so he just kind of spat it out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I knew nothing about what do you mean she's dead? Did she get like hit by a car? Like what the hell happened? And I didn't find out at the time because it was real. My aunt was there and she confirmed it, and I was like, that's my mom's sister. And I'm like, okay, so it's real. So it was his graduation. My big brother and I, we just walked around the building so we could cry our eyes out, about it, kind of comforting each other until we had to drive home. Told my dad. Found out from my aunt that she had colon cancer and was ill.
Mm.
And I don't know the full diagnosis of what happened. It makes my aunt uncomfortable to talk about it sometimes, and she's the only person that I really can talk to. But she did tell me that there was nothing that could be done, and it was getting bad, and she was in pain, and she took care of her in her last months in their home when it happened. And I didn't know she was sick. I didn't know any of this. Later on, afterwards, when I found out from my brother and my aunt, I found out other family members did know and didn't tell me. Another family member, an aunt to my grandfather, on her request, and I was angry with them. And this is something that's difficult because it depends on the individual. For me, I was very angry at them at the beginning when they said, she asked me not to tell you, because what do you say to that?
Yeah.
Like you could have told me. But I also now know our relationship at the time was not, we hadn't connected in years.
Yeah.
And she was, gonna go no matter what. And I I don't know till this day if me being there would have made it better or worse for her. I don't know what would have happened. A lot of people want to say be there for them no matter what, but it's not that simple. If you don't have a good relationship, you're starting over again, you don't know. I was a different person then. We had been arguing, and then just to see that she'd be sick and that there'd be nothing that I could do, would that have made it better for her just out of my convenience? You gotta live with that either way. I'm not happy with it, but at least I can live with the peace knowing that it was her decision that she told everyone not to, and I don't have to agree with it, but I kind of think maybe she did that to spare me. I don't know.
Mm.
I'll never know. Even my aunt doesn't know why she decided that, but I'd
Yeah.
like to think that at least. And then
Yeah.
after when I'd reconnected with my aunt, what I told you about when we spoke on the phone before is that she said, someday they'll come back to you. So just
Mm.
be there for them. And so I was like, okay, well, she knew I'd find you again. And now I've got my aunt who's like a mother to me, and she takes care of me, she helps me, and she's wonderful.
Good.
But it was hard.
Wow. For me, it's like what I'm hearing is this lack of closure of like you didn't know why your mom didn't want you to know,
Yeah.
right?
I don't
And
know.
there's no way of knowing. So it's like at that point it's like what do you tell yourself to be able to sleep at night? When you don't know, like it then becomes a mind game of like you could assume the worst, or
Yeah.
you could see it as like a glass half full. It's your decision on how to look at it. It's
Exactly.
like choosing to believe what you want to believe, and it's not delusional. I think it's a coping skill,
Yeah.
you know?
Because like what you just said, I could have focused on it being negative, and I'll never know. She never told anyone word for word why she made that decision.
Yeah.
They just respected her decision. So I can either tell myself that it was to spite me or it was to spare me.
Yeah.
And I think it was to spare me. And I don't think that's delusional thinking because as I got older and knew who my dad was and how manipulative he was, I feel like she knew I would grow into finding that out. Not
Yeah.
that she wanted us to have a strained relationship, but I now know things about my dad that I didn't know when I was younger that he put her through. And it's
Mm,
like now you can understand this person who's been your parent all your life that you don't know what they went through. Remember what I
right.
told you earlier about her having what I suspected as bipolar? She went through so much that I just did not know. So even when we were arguing, even when she got that DUI, to me, that was somebody in pain, you
Yeah.
know. Even though she was my parent, she was in pain. And I don't think she would have said that to spite me. I do think she said it to spare me.
Yeah. Yeah,
At least
for
that's how I
sure.
choose to look at it.
For sure. And you're such a big person for choosing to recognize that yes, you bore the brunt of her symptoms and her pain. You know, everyone's affected when you know you have a diagnosis that causes so much impairment to your functioning and colors your behavior. You know, everyone, all the loved ones are affected too. It's like this collateral effect. And you could have just as easily been spiteful and resentful to your mother um, for
Mm.
putting you through that, you know. But now it sounds to me that you're choosing to choose the compassionate route and be like, my mother was struggling, she was in pain. It wasn't all her fault, you know. And I
Yeah.
think that's really what people with mental illness are looking for from their loved ones is the forgiveness and the grace, you know, having them still love you despite, you know, maybe you inconvenience them when you're episodic or you cause a lot of disruption and chaos in their lives as well. It's like for them to be able to say, I see that this is not you, this is your illness talking, and I'm here to support you. And I see that you're in pain, and what can I do to help you? And I forgive you as well. I think really that's what good social support looks like, at least for me. So
Yeah. And
good
it's
on you for
thank you. It's difficult for some people to decide that because
yeah.
we like every situation's unique. I wouldn't say that mental health is not in par with personality and intent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of personality and intent of how you choose to have this relationship, but that's up to the individual. You know,
Yeah.
my mom at the time, we were bickering heads. It was not good at the time. You know, as a mother, I would have wanted her and I would actually have expected her to step up more. But as an adult, as a person who recognizes another person who you still love, notices that she was suffering, I can also acknowledge that,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about medication, like psychiatric medication, because one thing that when we were doing this phone call off this interview, you said something very profound that I hope I can quote you because
Good.
it was amazing. You said that medication gets you to the surface of the water when you have a brain illness or a psychiatric condition and you really do need to be medicated for it, the medication gets you to the surface of the water, so you're no longer suffocating and just surviving, fighting for survival. And then once you get to the surface, that's when you can learn how to swim,
Yeah.
right? And that's where the other stuff comes in, like the behavioral skills, the lifestyle
Mhm.
management. But lifestyle and behavior and talk therapy alone is not going to cut it if you're just under the surface suffocating and just trying to survive. So that was, I kind of paraphrased what you said, but I would love for you to say that again because
Yes.
it's really profound.
Someone had told me that quote years ago myself,
Mm,
and that's when I was starting my medication journey about feeling all those things and not sure where to go. And they said that medication in general is meant to bring you to the surface of the water so then you can learn how to float and how to swim. Because when you're not medicated and you are someone who needs it and you're considering it, it's scary to think, okay, I'm damaged. But in reality, it's something that is in your brain that's fighting against you. You weren't given a fair start, and that is not your fault,
yeah,
ever. So to admit that it's bringing you to the surface of the water is being able to say, I'm choosing myself to be able to have a happy life. And then when you get to the surface of the water, as we were talking about earlier, it does not change behaviors and patterns, but sorry, um,
yeah, you're good.
somebody just coming in. I'm on a
Hmm.
phone call. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so like
Medication. Hmm.
yeah, so when you get medication though, you it helps with those behaviors, you know. So once you're at the surface of the water, it brings you out of it. So for a lot of people who have ADHD and other mental conditions, depression comes with it a lot. So
Yeah.
that can be one thing I really recommend people work with is it can get you not out of the depression, but it can get your head above the water. And then you can start to observe your behaviors and patterns because before you were so engrossed in them, it was all you could see which is not your fault, but it's just it consumes so much of you. It's exhausting to want to get to the point where you can work on things to improve your quality of life, because everyone
Yeah.
deserves a quality of life. But once you get there, you can start to say, what kind of things should I be changing, looking out for, observing? When doing this without bias, just be like, I'm noticing this. I'd like to improve this. I'd like to work on this. And then we can use some of those skills that we were talking about earlier, swinging your feet over the bed, doing the 5 second roll. Think of those things that you can start to use.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think a lot of people face stigma when it comes to taking meds. A lot of internalized stigma, like a shame, like, oh, because I'm on meds, it means I must be crazy and damaged and there's something wrong with me. And
Mm.
what if people find out I have to take medication? Well, people take medication for all sorts of things, and it shouldn't be stigmatized. And I love what
Like,
you said
mm,
about it is like a radical act of self-love and self-care to be able to say, I need help and I'm gonna get help. And I
mm,
don't care if that means I need to be on medication, just I don't have any shame with that. That's just something I need to do for myself.
yeah.
And, you know,
And talking about it destigmatizes it, especially on a
exactly.
social level. Vega and I talk about that all the time. Like with you were saying, you feel more hesitant to talk about your conditions, and that's totally normal. Not everyone needs to, but in the right circumstances, with the right people, with comfort and what you need to do, um, it's I would encourage people to start on a healthy way, finding ways to bring it about so we can destigmatize it.
Yeah.
Like I said, with due time, I would never want to tell someone you have to tell somebody
Right.
because that puts pressure. But I think we need to start socially talking about it as normal, because it is normal. These
Yeah.
people, they're our friends, family, neighbors, they live amongst us, you know? It just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And I try to talk about it not passively, but inclusively in a lot of my conversations with people because I want it to be normalized
Exactly.
needs to be normalized because then people who really need medications, like you said, they're so, what about the stigma? And I'm like, well, it's because we're not talking about it normally. We need to
Yeah.
talk about some of the benefits it can have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm starting this podcast is so we can have these
I
open
love that.
conversations. Yeah, and funny enough, speaking of disclosure, I actually went to this like singles mingle event last night at
How'd it
this
go?
it was so right before I went and before I got ready, like I just laid in my bed and I was meditating
Mm,
and I was praying to the universe. I was like, please, I want to meet someone special today.
all right.
And lo and behold, I met not only one, but two people who I vibed with.
All
And by
right.
vibe, I mean like I was open with them about my diagnosis, which I did not plan on being at all. I was
Mm,
trying to be like change my approach to dating because in the past I'd be just it's like a first date topic. It's like the first thing I said, oh, by the way, I'm bipolar. And then
I've
that I
done stuff like
feel
that.
like yeah.
You're
And
like, by the way, I'm spicy.
It's like dropping a bomb before they
Yeah.
even get to know you.
It's almost like on the same level of like, how many kids do you want? People are like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like a little much for a first date topic. So now I'm a little more mindful of it, but that last night it was just like the conversations just led there. And with both of these two people I met, one of them said, I share that diagnosis. I
Wow.
also have bipolar. And then the other one was like, I suspect I have bipolar as well. And he was describing his symptoms and everything.
Wow.
I was like, what are the freaking odds for
Well, I
me to
think that's
meet?
awesome because like maybe when you did that, it spoke to them to be more, you know,
Yes.
like I said, we don't need
Yes.
to all be saying it, but it's so stigmatized. People aren't even comfortable saying it in general.
Yeah,
Like it's okay to talk about it, you know?
exactly.
I think that's great. How do you feel about it?
I feel really good. I feel like
Yeah.
even if it doesn't work out intimately, like I made those connections and I was able
Yeah.
to help them in the moment. I feel like I was able to share my lived experience and share things that worked for me and really be empathetic and compassionate towards them I call them bipolar warriors, fellow bipolar
I love
warriors.
that.
Yeah, so it's great. So that goes to show the power of vulnerability breeds more vulnerability, and which breeds connection. So, I say always lead with honesty, and yeah, you don't have to spill your whole life story on the first date. Um, One friend I talked to, he was like, people, I know you like deep conversations, Felicia, but people have to earn the deep conversation, they have to earn your trust first. You don't owe everyone a deep conversation. And I was like,
Mm.
huh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
That's an
That's true.
interesting balance too, because especially with ADHD, oversharing could be a
Ah,
dopamine trigger.
I heard that.
It took me a while to realize that oversharing is actually like a type of dopamine trigger. Just like repeating, it sounds ridiculous, repeating negative memories in your mind can also be a dopamine trigger because it
Interesting.
brings about, yeah, it's these subtleties in our behavior. It's not a criticism, but we just do that. I even read an article once a long time ago that said you tell different people the same information to get different reactions to stimulate your own dopamine. And I'm like, oh my God, I've done that
Yeah,
many
wow.
times.
Yeah, I've heard of that too, oversharing.
Yeah,
I used to be a big oversharer. I didn't realize that it
guilty.
could it could be my brain, It's like, why do I feel compelled to share so much about myself? Is the mechanism kind of like you're looking, so it's like you're looking for dopamine, right? Wherever you can get it. And oversharing, how does that give you dopamine? Like, explain that to me.
The anxiety of it can give like a reward system, like a rush,
Okay.
something like that. Same thing as for me, like I repeat negative memories. Like it's not healthy, but it took me a while to realize that that was like dopamine seeking. It just kind of wakes up your brain. I kind of, for some people to help them understand, it's like stemming. But through mental and verbal. But when you're doing stemming, you're picking at your skin, you're biting, you're pulling hair. It sends small signals to your brain, wake up, wake up. It's like a subtlety of waking up. But when you're doing these things socially, it's a different way of internalizing it in your brain, like wake up, wake up, wake up. I want to seek something to keep my attention.
Interesting. I
Hmm.
see. I see. Wow, we covered so much. I learned so much about ADHD from you. Like, this is
There's a
very,
whole
very
world.
interesting, especially since I suspect I might have, I might be on the spectrum. I feel like mental illness at large exists on a spectrum, you
It does.
know? And just because, you could be very, very severe case or you could have mild symptoms, but I also don't like to say like one illness is harder than the other because they all suck in different ways. But I now want to talk about some of the gifts of mental illness because there are silver
Mm,
linings.
yes, there are.
There's always a positive in the hardships. So, what are some silver linings and gifts you notice in yourself through your ADHD?
For me, there's like a peppiness. A lot of people who
Mm.
have ADHD, we're like forward people. And like what we
Mhm.
said earlier, sometimes that's a negative, but sometimes it's a good thing. There's this social masking we all do in society to put on this face that when I say something, a little bit like where I'm not understanding a social cue, and I'll say something bluntly, it'll make the other person laugh. And they're like, and I'm like, I just was telling you what was on my mind. Like, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I saw my cousin just last weekend. She came into town and she was holding up a bag she was showing me, and she hadn't seen me for a long time. I had my birthday last summer. And she said, "What do you think of this bag?" She's just asking me. And I was like, "Oh, it's okay. It's really not my thing. It's kind of like peppy, like snazzy, like girl, what you want to call it? Like a snobby girl in a something." And I was like, "I really would never wear it." And she goes, "Okay, happy birthday."
Oh,
No. And I just, that's what I mean is she knew I meant no harm. She knew I meant no harm. I was just,
yeah. Oh my
oh
God.
my God. And I was just like, at least you know I can never lie to you. And I tell people this story and they laugh at it. And I'm like, see, sometimes being ADHD or a little autistic is like, it's no harm in it, for people who
Yeah.
know you. I've done that with some conversations. Somebody will tell me something like about something someone did, and I'll just bluntly say, well, that was stupid. And they're like, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
some people love the honesty. There's just this
Hmm.
mask of like, we just so much we're not allowed to be honest. Now, you don't need to be to the point where you're hurting people verbally
Right.
or emotionally, but like sometimes we kind of just want to get to the heart of it, just no more of this like filtered stuff. It's not all rainbows and stuff. That's another thing I do with acting, is we get to that point where you're drawing that emotion forward and you want to draw back because
Hmm.
society has told you you can't have that and be seen having that. But that should be a normal conversational thing. You don't need to
Yeah.
tell a stranger your life story, but you need to be like, do you like this thing? No, I don't. People
Yeah.
say all the day, how was your day? And I'll tell them like, well, this happened or that happened without going into excessive detail, but I'll tell them like, hey, I didn't get my coffee and I'm really pissed about that. Instead of good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
some of them,
exactly.
some of them will giggle and laugh. They'll go, "Oh, I like this and that," and then it starts a conversation.
Hmm.
Not that neurotypical people can't do that, but I think if you have ADHD or you're on the spicy scale, it kind of evokes more of just a little bit of a light. You have a
Yeah.
light, you have a creativity, you do give something.
Yeah.
It's not a criticism. We critique and hurt ourselves so much, and people love that. They love your honesty, your transparency, your fun, your weird. They love that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's such a beautiful way to put, to reframe a diagnosis that
Yeah.
it's so easy to focus on the negatives it brings to our lives, but there are always gifts to it. I love what you said about just your honesty, your sometimes almost like brutal honesty, but that people can find refreshing.
Yeah.
I think everyone, especially in America, we're so trained to be like
Right.
polite and tactful and
To a
almost to the
fault.
point of being dishonest. And you mentioned that. I was like, wait, and now I'm looking back on my past and I'm like, wait, that's why, I said those things
Hmm.
to people. And yeah, unfortunately, I said it to the wrong person and it burned that bridge. And I was like, oops, I thought I was being rational and speaking my truth, and they just didn't receive it well because they were so caught in a world where everyone's plastic and fake
Hmm.
and spitting out lies.
Well,
It's
it's,
like,
also like we were talking about social media as well.
yeah.
It you will be disliked for any opinion you have, even not having an opinion. You will be disliked for not having opinion. You cannot be fully liked. And that is scary for people. And especially if you have ADHD or some, mental thing going on with your situation, it's scary because you have to be, well, not have to, you are more impulsively yourself. And that
Yeah.
sets you aside. They're like, why aren't you like everyone else?
Yeah.
Why aren't you feeding this stigma? When we see little kids, I envy them. Children are so honest to a fault. Like they will insult you to your face. The amount of times that kids have called me fat and stupid, I
Oh,
actually kind of envy that because I'm like, I wish I had your bravery,
yeah.
little one. Because somebody look at me and be like, you're being such a prick. And I'm like, a kid is saying it with all honesty, intent matters, but the children, they're just like, whatever. I work
Yeah.
with the elderly, they insult me every day, and I kind of find it refreshing sometimes. I'm like, well, at least they're not lying.
Oh my God. I know. It's like the society just kind of beat the authenticity out of us.
Well, to the
We feel
point
like
now
we
where
have
it's,
to
yeah, it's uncomfortable
conform.
now. It's like
Yeah.
so uncomfortable. When we're doing acting class, it's just to get us to even be loose takes like almost 30 minutes from the whole class. And it's not a judgment. It's just we're like deprogramming from being outside of that classroom. It's
Wow.
just to get us to like shake it out, to like be weird. It's like, oh my gosh, that is hard.
Wow. I was just having a funny thought. It's like the only way you can get me loose enough to take an acting class is if I drink a glass of red wine.
Well, you got to be in
That
your
will help.
comfort. You got to be in your comfort level, do it with people you feel safe with, start out small, but part of that challenge line that you have to meet once you're above the waters, you got to start doing some of the challenges. But once
Yeah.
you get there, find a place that's safe. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to be a little uncomfortable. You're never fully ready. We wait till we're ready. You're never ready.
Yeah.
I saw an article once that said like you only are qualified for a job 6 months after you've been hired. And I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's golden because
Yeah.
it's true. You'll ha technically meet it, but do you know the technicalities of it? No, not until you've actually started that. And that's a
Exactly.
lot with life and motivation. We use motivation so much. You're never ready. And that needs to be normalized, not as a criticism, but as a baseline. You're never ready. You got to do it and then you'll be ready. And people are like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, can you be ready for something you've never experienced before? You can. It's not possible, you know? And
Yeah.
be kind to yourself. You're like, I might mess this up. There was something I did in class a few weeks ago, and I'm still playing it in my head as if it was messed up, and it was not. Even my teacher told me it wasn't. Yet I was telling myself it was, and I was like, let's look at this from another perspective. It's not. It's
Mhm.
not. Keep fighting that thought. It's not real. And it's gotten smaller since then, thank goodness.
Good. And that's one thing I think about artistic pursuits is that there is a lot of wiggle room for like quote unquote mistakes. You know, I had a dance teacher tell me the great thing about dancing, as opposed to something like gymnastics, where there's a very small margin of error in gymnastics, which I did for 10 years. She said in dance, if you make a quote unquote mistake, you can just play it off and turn it into
Mm,
something cool and
yes,
unexpected, you know? And I'm like, oh, wow, that's the beauty of art, right? It's
it
like,
is. I like your teacher. My teacher says the same thing too. We'll have all of us will be re redoing our lines and we'll go, I forgot the line. He goes, okay, right there. If you hadn't have told me that, I never would have known. And it's like, oh shoot, yeah. He's like, play it off, make it a part. And we're like,
make it
oh yeah,
apart.
you can
Yeah.
do that in life.
Yeah. No, I think like actors forget their lines all the time, right? And like, st not all the time, but like that's one
I
thing
think they
I,
do. Pros do. They admit it.
yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Because I had on my previous podcast, I was interviewing a lot of like Broadway stars and professional stage performers. I was like, do you
Yeah,
guys ever like mess up a line? And they're like, oh, yeah, all the time. All the time.
it's normal.
But they play it off because they're professionals and they've gotten so well practiced at just going with it. And it helps
Mhm.
if you have a good scene partner, you know, and you're on the same wavelength, you know, they can maybe
Mhm.
help you out. But that whole idea of putting myself out there on a live stage, and if I forgot a line, I would just fucking freeze. I'd be like,
Well, you
oh
got
my
to
God.
start small. I don't recommend everyone just goes. I haven't even been on like a big stage yet.
Mm.
That's a goal I'm working up to. But you got to start small. You got to just ha let it happen. One of the things that you, with acting at least, I can't speak for all art, but with acting at least, is they call it like the ego death.
Oh,
Ever
yeah, I've
heard of
heard
that
of that.
concept?
Yeah.
Or some people say you're not supposed to completely kill the ego, but you're really keeping it in its place because it's not a judgment, but we think perfection has to be what we're doing in any art form. We think it has to be perfection. And I'm like, actually, the perfection is relatability and being able to mess up.
Oh, I
Being
love
like you want to
that.
get it, but it's okay to have those moments, like what they were saying, forgetting a line, moving a dan missing a dance move. Like that's what makes me go, I can relate to you. So when
Yeah.
we get up there and we're like, okay, it has to be perfect. I'm like, that's a little bit of the ego thing. Like, okay, I have to be this ideal. And it's like, no, that's what stops people from relating to you.
And that is a beautiful metaphor for how we view mental illness at large, is
Hmm.
like, we're not perfect. No single human being on this earth is perfect,
Hmm.
right? If
Yeah.
you're too perfect and polished and put together, this is what my therapist said, is you're not relatable. People are not going to want to be your friend. They're just too intimidated by you. You know, that it creates a disconnect if you are just too perfect or
Yeah.
whatever. Because I used to get a lot of social anxiety before teaching because I used to be a really shy person. And she's like, Belisha, no, your students don't expect perfection from you. And if, in fact, if you're too perfect up there, it makes you less relatable. If you, it's okay to show a little bit of shyness and
Yeah.
social anxiety, you know, it makes you more relatable and people are actually going to like you more because of that. I think your metaphor with acting and being like in art, there is room to mess up. And
Hmm.
that's what makes you human. And to be human is to be celebrated. And yeah, this was an amazing interview, Claire. I
Thank
have
you.
been looking forward to this for so
I
long.
have big too. It was a
Um,
lot of fun.
it was a lot of fun. Is there any last piece of advice you'd like to offer our listeners before we conclude?
Just that if you're struggling with mental health, it's okay to acknowledge the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, the wonderful, and find people who can motivate you and also be your own cheerleader.
Yeah,
Sometimes, a lot of times, we don't have a community or a support system. That's what puts us into depression really fast. But once you're above the surface, you can start to heal yourself a little bit, and it can help you find the next step to keep moving in life.
exactly. I love that. What
So.
a great way to conclude. All right,
Thank you
Claire.
for today. This was great.
This was amazing. Thank you so much and take
Yeah.
care of yourself.
Chat with you later.
All
Bye.
right, bye. As we wrap up today's journey, a massive thank you for spending this time with us on the Well Anchored Life. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps other people find the show. We have new episodes dropping every Tuesday, so follow us on Instagram to stay up to date with new episodes and behind the scenes content. We appreciate you being here. Talk to you guys next week.